Hello. Thank you for tuning in today. I am Julie Jones, and this is Sandra Wood, and we are a mother-daughter coaching team. We are business partners and pretty much just best friends at this point. And we work with professional women who are tired of trying things that don't work. They're feeling unfulfilled in their lives, and they're just kind of unsure of what to do next, but they know they are looking for more out of life. And this is our Uncover Your True Purpose podcast, where we are exploring all things self-development, which may include relationships, spirituality, personal, professional success, things like this, right? How to create real fulfillment in your life, how to really figure out how to do life on your own terms, because we know there are so many, people out there trying to fit themselves in a box and do things that don't work for them. And so we are on a personal mission to help people understand really how they function, how they can thrive as themselves and be true to themselves. So we are here today talking about how to change your life with personality assessments. And we're so excited to have this conversation today and hope that this brings a lot of value to you, because we love personality assessments, right, Mom?
Yes, we love looking at all different ways to look at ourselves and also our clients, as a way to just begin that process of self-discovery. And, most of the people we come across already have done a lot of these things, but we really wanted to talk about giving suggestions of what they are, but also really talking about how do you use them, right?
Yeah, because I think like we hear this all the time from people. They're like, "Oh yeah, I love Strengths Finder," or "I love, taking the quizzes that pop up on Facebook and learning more about myself." But like, what do I do with this information? With most of our coaching clients, they've taken Strengths Finder at some point, or, disc profile, Meyers-Briggs, something like that. And almost always they're like, "Yeah, it's sitting in a file in my desk and I haven't looked at it since I took it." And I just
Yeah,
don't really know what to do with it, right?
yeah.
And
I
I
actually
was, oh,
I
go ahead, Mom.
I was just going to say, I actually have a folder in my desk that's probably about this big because I started this about 18 years ago when I first became a coach. And I have all of the assessments, and some of them aren't really accurate anymore, but it's really cool to go back and pull those up because there's some themes that haven't changed. And that's what I love about doing this kind of work.
So maybe it's not a bad thing that they're sitting in a file in your desk.
Oh, you just need to do something with them.
Yeah. And I think that's the part where people have a question mark. Like they're just like, what do I do with this? And, I was thinking about this morning in the shower. I was thinking about how even as like a preteen, I don't remember what the magazines are called, Mom, you probably remember, but there were all those like, preteen, like trashy magazines, and they always had personality tests in them, or sorry, or like, discover your romance style or things like that. But I remember being like a teenager and being fascinated by them and like loving them and thinking that it was just this kind of like whatever stupid waste of time to be filling them out. But now I'm looking back on it going, no, I've always kind of had this fascination with knowing as much about myself and knowing about people, right? That's really what these assessments show us. And so I was just laughing this morning. I'm like, oh man, I remember those those magazines.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't remember the names of the magazines. I think they're long gone out of my
Yeah,
memory
hopefully.
bank. But I mean, I just remember growing up too, looking at, I mean, magazines were they were our jam before social media. So we did a lot of those assessments. So it makes sense that we see them in Instagram and Facebook and all the places where we're scrolling on our phone. So
Yeah.
there's limitless ways to do self-assessments. We have some that we really like, and we'll kind of talk about those today. And then we're just really going to give examples of how do you work those? How do you actually make this be a part of your life? And
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think like the question that so many people have in their lives is just like, sorry, my thing is
Light
going
went on.
bananas over here. What is happening?
I don't know. You got
There
to
we
pop
go.
it
All right.
on.
Lights turn on, stay on. Okay. So yeah, so let's talk about how we can actually use these assessments to help us in our lives, because that's, I think, what people really want to know and want to, like, they want to feel empowered by that information, right? Not just feel like, oh, that was like a fun thing to do in that half hour that I did it. Now, what do we do with that? So I think like what we can, start by acknowledging is that any of these assessments, StrengthsFinder is one, Gallup StrengthsFinder is one that we use with all of our clients. We also use human design as a tool to understand more about each of our clients' like unique makeup and blueprint. But there's so many. There's Meyers-Briggs. Some people, might feel really passionate about their astrology charts, disc profile, numerology. Like there's so many, the Enneagram. And I think that the one that you understand the most is probably the most beneficial to you. So I wouldn't say that there's like one that's the creme de la creme of personality assessments. I just think the one that makes sense to you is the one that you should use. But for us, we really love StrengthsFinder and we love human design. So that's kind of the the lens that we're speaking through today, but StrengthsFinder really is awesome because it's very comprehensive. Like Mom, you said you've done it how many times?
Well, I think I took my first StrengthsFinder test maybe 15, 16 years ago. Probably done it about 4 or 5 times since then, just because I had different roles and different jobs. And I just kind of wanted to see where I was. But the cool thing you can do with StrengthsFinder is there's 33 strength/talent themes, and you can actually do the whole test, which I did about a year ago. And then I could see how all of those, like I could see what my top 10 are and how they just kind of rotated a little bit throughout all those years, but they had remained very consistent. So
like I think we can say like you've tested the system and we know it's pretty foolproof if over 15, 20 years, your top 10 have pretty much stayed your top 10 strengths. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and human design too is one that like we just see the accuracy in ourselves and in our clients whenever we're going through human design charts with people are reading them and we're like, oh my gosh, this is, makes a lot of sense. This is exactly how I am, So I think that's why those two are our favorite, but really any of them is just a tool for increasing your self-awareness, right? This is like a tool for giving you information about yourself, because for some people it's really hard to like say, what am I strengths, like what am I good at, where do I excel, especially if you don't have people in your life.
And I think I don't know if your internet okay, I think your internet just kind of went in and out a little.
Okay, am I back?
I wanted to add too that yeah, you're back.
Okay.
I wanted to add too that I think sometimes we get, what I think both you and I love about this topic is sometimes we get really we identify with ourselves overly in the roles that we have. So if we're a mom or a parent or maybe a business owner, or we're taking a caregiver, whatever those roles are, sometimes I think that we tend to think of who we are based out of those roles. And what I love about being able to do personal assessments like this, it can show us that we're so much more, and that maybe we've created a personality based on the roles that we're following in life. And maybe there's more to it than that. So I just want to add that piece.
Yeah. And I think the approach that you have to your role changes dramatically when your self-image is maybe a little bit more accurate.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the gift of the assessment. It's like, I always use this example of like, I don't know about y'all, but I have a kind of a messy garage, and which my mom would say drives her insane, but here we are. And if I'm like have to do some sort of household project, Like I'm going out in the garage. I like can't find, the tools that I need for the project. I'm like rummaging around. It's kind of dark. It's like, a pain. And I always think about like Strengths Finder or whatever personality assessment is like, these are your tools, like your talents, your strengths are your tools. And it's like, if I organized my tools in my garage and had like a spotlight on the ones that I needed, that would be kind of the same as what we do in a strengths assessment is like, where the tools are, they're organized, there's a spotlight on them all the time. So when you're having this communication challenge or when you're approaching a project at work, you know exactly where the tool is that you need. And it's very quick to go pick it up, unlike my own experience in my household. But I think like really understanding these things about ourselves, it's just a way to increase our emotional intelligence. Wouldn't you agree, Mom?
Yeah. And really what all of this requires is just some time and self-awareness. And my favorite word, some contemplation, because
Yeah.
we can't know ourselves if we don't really step back and observe ourselves. So that is a crucial piece of self-development. And these tools are great ways to open that conversation, to ask yourself that question. Wow, I notice I'm like this. And then that's why we like doing some of these assessments, because it's like, yeah, you are like that. And that's a good thing. It's not a flaw. It's actually something that you're built to, a way that you're built to be, but you may not be perceiving that way. And so it just takes time to take a look at these things.
Yeah, I mean, that's really top of mind we just had a coaching call the other day with someone who had been kind of perceiving her strengths as her weaknesses, right? And I mean, she really, what was her top strength, Mom?
Was deliberative.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So both Julie and I have been working with in business. We've worked with a lot of teams with Strength Finder, and so there's some that just come up that I haven't spent a lot of time with. So I really hadn't had anyone who had deliberative. And Julie, I see you're frozen. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Am I coming through?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay, cool.
you.
Okay, so she. Okay, awesome. Just want to make sure. I can never tell if it's my connection or yours. So she had deliberative as her top strength, and a person who has deliberative does not make rash decisions. They need to take time to analyze things. They're very kind of risk adverse. And they need more, they have more of a deep internal process. So when it comes to making decisions, they really value time to go through all of the scenarios so they don't make a bad decision. And when they do that and they come out with a decision, they really trust their own decision. And so this was her top strength, which we had to smile because we certainly see it in how she approaches our calls and how she approaches her life. But she had a lot of challenges from this strength. And Julie, you want to kind of share a little bit about what her awarenesses were and how she was able to shift her awareness around this strength or talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think with anybody, maybe not just specifically her, but I think with any of us, when we're not aware of our strengths or our talents, we just experience them as almost like sensitivities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we're lacking the awareness of what those things are, we then can perceive them through the like lens of these are my personality defects almost, and like this is what's wrong with me. And I think that's kind of what she was doing, of saying like I am not quick to respond to people. And I think she was giving the example of like when an opportunity presents itself, I can never make a decision, and then I overthink it, and then I miss the opportunity completely because it took me too long to make a decision. So she was kind of explaining how like this deliberative strength can kind of like come and bite her in the end. And so we were kind of exploring with her, well, actually, you're really careful and you're very calculated. And like, maybe if we can increase your awareness around this, then you can start to invite other people to give you like heavy decisions to make, because you know that you're going to handle it really well. And then when there's like lighter decisions that don't matter so much, like where should we go to eat or something like that, maybe you like hand those over to your husband, or, you know, somebody else can kind of make the decisions on those. And she had this whole perception of herself that she was like had slow processing, like she was in some ways defective because she couldn't think quickly on her feet, when in reality she just needs time to process things, and she actually thinks through things on a much deeper level than somebody who's a little bit more impulsive and has like quicker processing strengths. And so I think just shifting that for her, she was able to see like, oh, this isn't actually what's wrong with me, this is actually what's right with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then we encouraged her just to kind of share that with other people, like, hey, I'm built this way. So that might not be your process, but it's my process, and being able to kind of claim it as a strength, but also helping other people understand her. And I think that's the other part of doing these kind of self-assessment pieces, is it's about your awareness, but it might also be a good tool for how you communicate to other people. And both Julie and I see this in our marriages, because we have these conversations with our partners. And from a human design point of view, I am somebody who starts things a lot, but I'm not meant to follow through every single thing I start. And I'm married to somebody who is not designed that way. So it's hard for him to understand why I can't finish things, or why I always change to the new next different thing. And now he understands that, and I understand that better. So now I can actually have conversations with people like, hey, I'm built like this. So if you're expecting me to take this project all the way to the end, I'm going to have to hire out. I'm going to have to get support, because I'm just not designed this way. And so I think it's really helpful for us to be able to know ourselves enough that we can even allow other people to know that's how we operate. So it doesn't become an annoyance or some sort of flaw that we perceive or that they perceive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think something that like a question that I've had from teams in the past is like, okay, so if it's not my strength, is that just something I shouldn't do? And it's like, well, no, that's not how life works. Like you can't just avoid things because it doesn't come naturally to you. But I do think there's a way to approach anything from a place of strengths and from your talents and your design. And I think that's kind of what you're speaking to. It's not that like you would say, no, I'm not taking on that project at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're acknowledging, hey, I'm going to be really good at spearheading this. I'm going to be really good at bringing everyone together and getting a lot of excitement and enthusiasm to kick it off. But my energy is going to fade as we work on it. And I am not going to be the person who's like coming in at the end, cleaning up all the pieces. I'm already looking at what's coming next. And so just to be aware of that, like you're still going to be on the project at the end of the project, but to be like, hey, Julie, you're much better. Like this is why we work together so well, is because you're, you know, really great at starting things and seeing, you know, those little things. I'm great at looking at it at the end and saying, is this system fully, like, are all the kinks worked out? You know, how is this working? So when we know this about each other, we can kind of balance each other out and not feel like we have to shine in an area that is hard for us to shine in, right?
Yeah. And so much of why we do this work is because we want people to not waste energy trying to be someone they're not. And also feeling like, well, it worked for them, it should work for me. But that's just doesn't work in the world of our own unique talents and strengths, and, you know, our personalities, and also all the things that we bring forward in life from our past too. So we're all a complex, we're all very complex in how we're built. And these are just ways for us to see. So like for me, knowing this about myself, I might want to have someone on my team that has consistency, or someone who has deliberative, because that will really help me further the goals that I've set out for myself or for my team. And this is why we love doing this kind of work. And a big part of why I started doing this when I was managing teams is because I'd always find there'd be friction in a team because somebody was so one way and somebody was so another way, and they just had a lot of resistance or they had a lot of stories. Well, she's just so like this. And once we did Strength Finder, we could all sit down at the table. Then I started to feel like we were starting to respect each other. Like, oh, you're not built that way. That's you shouldn't even be doing that task. So to me, these are ways for us to understand how to work, within an organization, but also how to work in our family unit. Like, it's even great to know what your kids' strengths are, and also, human design as well. So, again, there's a million different ways to look at this. I think DISC is fantastic too, but it's just really being able to take what you have and spending some time, again, thinking through that, noticing things. And this is why we love this work, because then we can have the conversations and move it from just a tool that you read once, that your boss gave you, and they hired you with it, and then it got stuck in a folder and it never got used. So we're trying to today just really talking about ways, how do you keep this alive and how do you move it forward? So Julie, do you have some suggestions on how to do that?
Yeah, I had a couple things that popped in my head while you were talking though. And I was thinking, like, when we look at people's strengths, there are some strengths that are like the gas pedal and some that are like the brake pedal. And then there are also strengths that are future focused. And then there are some that are past focused. And I think I spent a lot of my professional years trying to be all of those things, and then realizing later on, like, oh no, I'm just very future focused, and I'm wired in certain ways. And I think, like, in your example, like, you are often the gas pedal in most of your strengths. You're also very future focused. And so it's nice. I mean, even I think you could say your husband he's a kind of a brake pedal for you, which can be a point of, it's almost like sandpaper, sometimes there's some friction because you're like, I want to go. And he's like, I want to slow down and like, slow down. Whoa, let's look around where we at right now. And I think, just to know that about each other, it's like you almost can put a buffer around that sandpaper. And I think we see this a lot with teams too in the workplace, of like, if you know who the forward moving people are and you know who the past looking people are, and you marry them together and they understand this about each other, it's no longer a place of conflict. And now it's a place where they can acknowledge, like, hey, they're the person to go to figure out the strategy on this project. I'm the person to take it to completion, so that just popped into my head as you were talking. I forgot what the question was that you asked.
Yeah, like how do people just go from just knowing this to actually using it?
The practice piece, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like, we kind of have been talking about, I think awareness is the first step. So an exercise I like to use with clients is just to list out your top strengths. And these can be like, if you've taken Strengths Finder, list out your top 5. If you haven't, a great thing to do is just ask the people around you, what do you perceive my strengths to be? And then to maybe do a little journaling or self-reflection on, like, what do I think my strengths are? And that may come more easily to some people. For others, that's more difficult to identify. And that's part of your design, probably, whether or not that comes naturally to you. So there's no defect there. But then to journal out what those are and push yourself to think of examples of how they show up in your life. So for me, like, one of my top strengths is maximizer. Actually, my number 1 is maximizer. And that is really the desire and ability to take something that's already good and make it extraordinary. And so I have a high need for excellence in things that I do. And for years, I was like, I'm battling the perfectionist brain. And, I also have some, like, neurodiversity sort of ADHD challenges that have happened early on in my life that made it a little bit, like, made my experience harder to focus on things. So I think I was more prone to want things to be perfect when I was focusing on them, because I just was, that's kind of like, you know, fixated on that. But now I can see that I was like, oh no, that's actually part of my maximizer strength. And this isn't a defect or something that's wrong with me, that I spend a lot of time wanting things to be perfect. It's actually my superpower to see something that's good and know how to make it great, or to see how somebody's approaching their life and to help them step into their next level. And so I can look at, well, I'm doing that all the time with my coaching clients. And here's how that shows up in my relationships. And here's how that shows up in, you know, building a website or whatever the things I'm doing on my day-to-day, in my day-to-day. Yeah. So I think just first acknowledging what those are and then listing out how it shows up in your life can be a really good first step, just to build that awareness. And then it's like once, I think my internet's cutting out again. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. It glitches.
It glitches. But we're good. Okay. Fun interwebs. But I think the next step, once you've built that self-awareness and you're seeing how it shows up in your life, then it's like really, you are able to leverage it, and you're able to not only leverage it in a way that you're like, hey, this is what I should be getting paid to do because this is what I'm really good at and this is where I shine, but also leveraging it in our thinking about ourselves and using this to kind of rewrite the stories that we tell about ourselves. And I think this is what this client we were talking about earlier was having, this aha moment of like, oh my God, I've told myself this story about how I'm wrong and how this is something that's wrong with me for so long. And now you're telling me this is actually my superpower, right? Because I think when we're not living really in alignment with who we really are, we're kind of not utilizing our strengths, and we have our blinders on to who we are, where we end up like I think these end up being kind of sources of sensitivity and almost areas where we get triggered. So like for me, another one of my strengths is positivity. And so if I am in a really, like, I'm more prone to depression, and I think it's because I have more sensitivity around positive, you know, feeling positive. And so when I'm around really negative people, I feel it more intensely than maybe somebody else who doesn't have that in their profile. And when I'm in a depressive state, I'm more sensitive to it and it feels heavier than it would, or I'm more triggered by somebody's negativity than someone who doesn't have that as a value and as a talent. So I think we can also start to use, like, we can see, oh, this is why I'm triggered by this person or by this behavior, or, you know, yeah, I'm rambling. What else do you have to say about that, Mom?
Yeah. I also think that when we play with this more, we start to accept other people because we start to realize, I don't know their hidden talents. I don't know why they're presenting this way. An example, a personal example, and one that I have with women who have the strength relator, I have that strength. You're really built to have one-on-one relationships, and you really want to have deeper one-on-one. So if you're going into, say, a networking event or a family reunion, those are a little bit harder for those of us who have relator as one of our superpowers. And so sometimes I will see other women or other humans just make a judgment of like, I'm not great in crowds, you know, and I don't like the feeling of it, and I never feel like I connect to everyone, and you know, I just feel really awkward. And then a way to reframe that when they see that they have a relator, it's like, oh, well, you're just not built that way. You're built to walk into a crowd, find that person that resonates with you or that you really like or you really want to get to know more, and just spending the evening with that person and walking away and feeling like your cup was filled, because that's how you're built to try to go into things and say, I'm not good in crowds, or I can't handle all these people. This is a way to reframe. That's just one example of how to reframe how you're doing things. And then there might be people at that event that aren't relators. that like to work the crowd. They might have a strength called woo, and that strength means that they come into a room and they are there to meet and talk and intermingle with every single person, and that might not be your jam, and we might judge that person for that. So I think really understanding how we're designed and understanding that others aren't designed this way can really help us be more compassionate, maybe more open, maybe more flexible with people, than rather walking into a room and like, well, they suck, more so it could be, I just don't get them, or I don't understand them. And we don't have to, but we can also not bring energy to those situations as well.
Yeah, I think of like humans and how we work in the world as like almost like we're this giant puzzle, and like we're each shaped differently. We're not meant to all be the same puzzle piece. And how beautiful would it be if everyone was just really in their own puzzle piece shape? And like we, to get the bigger picture of what we're here to do, we each have to be owning our shape. We can't be trying to be somebody else's shape. And I think like walking into a party is a perfect example of that. Like you look around and there are people who are more uncomfortable with social interaction. There are people who are thriving in it. And I just think of like, I'm like, okay, if my design type is kind of like yours, where I'm really good one-on-one with people, I can be extroverted and be really, one of my strengths is that I'm very welcoming. And so I'm a great person to be, helping people meet each other, but like really I'm great to be invited in and then let my strengths shine. And if I'm just able to give myself full permission to do that, instead of feeling like, oh, I need to go to this party and put on my social face and be someone I'm not, like when we do that in any area of our life, we leave that party feeling totally drained. And I think that's the gift of understanding your strengths and using them all the time, is that you actually can become a lot more energy efficient. And I mean, we talk to people every day who are like struggling with energy.
Mm-hmm.
They are tired, they're exhausted, they don't know how to do all the shit in their lives that they've put on their schedule. And it's really like deflating and it sucks. And it's not a fun feeling for anybody. And I think this is one tool to understand, like, if we are trying to be someone we're not, that takes a lot of our energy. And so if we want to be more successful and more strategic and have more meaningful relationships and have more fulfillment in our life, we have to really own who we are and feel very solid walking into a room saying, nope, this is who I am. I'm a relator. I'm going to sit in the corner and be a magnet for that other person who's the relator in the room. And we're going to have an amazing evening together, just talking and really having a deep connection, versus going to an event and feeling like you need to make small talk when you hate making small talk. Mm-hmm. And then leaving that event feeling drained and like now you have to recover for 2 days. Mm-hmm. That doesn't help you click your piece of the puzzle into the puzzle, right? I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's like, I just think, how cool would it be to live in a world where we're all just really shining in our own gifts, right?
Yeah. And why we just started with this topic today, because it's just part of the piece of the puzzle of arriving where you want to arrive. So much of the time when we start working with clients, we find out where they are right now, and then we start asking them where they want to be. And it's always amazing. People have a sense of where they want to be, but they don't really know how to get there. And they're really unsure. And we always start with this piece, because knowing yourself and getting information about yourself is super helpful, because it starts building a foundation to start moving forward to actually manifesting or creating that life that you want to feel much more alive in. And we always use the word fulfillment, because that is just what we hear all the time with women that we talk to. They're either in unfulfilling jobs or unfulfilling relationships, or they're not fulfilled in their purpose here or their health. And so this is why we really go into these pieces, because it first of all helps us understand them, so then we can coach them and support them and mentor them in all the right ways. But also then they start to go, oh, I'm like this. This is okay. I actually don't have to fight this thing. Or we might discover that some of the ways that they built themselves to be are on a shaky foundation of maybe trauma or misconceptions, or experiences that were intense, and we can actually dismantle some of that, heal some of those things, so that they can actually really stand on a strong foundation of who they really are, despite all of these pretty common human challenges that we have and ways that we perceive ourselves and the stories that we tell ourselves. Because that's the thing we see a lot, right, Julie? The stories that people have told themselves based on the struggles that they've had or the misperceptions of who they really are.
Yeah, I think that's the key here. That's how a personality assessment changes your life.
Mm-hmm.
When you perceive yourself in a certain way, then those are the thoughts that you have about yourself. And then that informs the way you feel about yourself, which informs the actions that you take, which makes up your whole reality, right?
Yes.
So if we shift how we view ourselves and we stop saying, oh, I need to do this, I should do that, and this is really hard for me, and I'm broken in all these ways, when it shifts to like, that's just not really my jam, I'm gonna let somebody else do that, I'm gonna be over here being my bad self, doing my thing, and whoever that resonates with can come hang out with me. Like, that's a very different feeling. And I think like it's so amazing to see people like start to rewire those beliefs that they have about themselves, and to say, whoa, like the reason I haven't gone for that promotion, or the reason why I haven't been successful in my relationships, is because this has been my perception of myself. And all I have to do is change that.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
whoa. Duh. And I think that's the thing, we see clients all the time. They're like, oh, that's it. It's like, yeah, pretty much. That's
Pretty
it.
much. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the exciting part, because that part you can start to change immediately, because all it took was your awareness. It's like, oh, I actually don't have to perceive something that way. And you know, and this also doesn't mean that we still don't have to do hard things or uncomfortable things. I love the example that you give, Julie, about your house. You want to share, like, I mean, you don't love cleaning your house, but
Yeah.
how did you reframe that based off of your strengths?
Yeah. So I feel like this is an easy example to relate to, maybe. I love living in a clean house. I love organization. I'm pretty like, I tend to be more on the minimalistic side of things. Like, I like how things look when they're neat and tidy. I, however, struggle to maintain a clean home. Like, I hate cleaning. I would rather just like donate everything and get it out of my house. But you know, I live with two small humans and a husband, and you know, we have to coexist together, and we have to maintain our household so that it's not hazardous. And so, you know, I have two children under the age of 5. And so it's messy, and it's an exciting time, I would say. And
you are stuck.
oh man, am I back now? Maybe. No. Internet, come back.
Internet. Okay.
All right. Ready? Back
Yeah.
on.
Go
So
again.
anyway, over the weekends, that's usually my time to kind of reset the house, get things cleaned up, organized. And I also, and the way that I am built, I do not have like a lot of energy to just go and go and go like some other people. And for years I was like, how are other moms doing this? Like, I don't understand. And I really felt like there's something wrong with me, that I can't keep home the way all these other moms keep their homes together. And honestly, like I had pretty rough postpartum depression. This was a huge piece of it, just thinking there was something wrong with me that I couldn't do. Like, I was, you know, like, what's wrong with me that I can't keep up with all these other people? And once really exploring my unique design and my strengths, I realized like, oh, I don't have this generator energy that just keeps going and going and going. My energy is, in human design, I'm a projector. So my energy ebbs and flows, and really I need to have a lot of rest, which means I also need to have a lot of really good systems in place in my home so that things can stay tidy and stay organized without requiring a lot of manual labor. And so when looking around my home, trying to figure out how to motivate myself to get it clean, it's helpful for me to understand that like one of my gifts is beautifying things. I really loved to make things beautiful. I love art. I love to be creative. I love, beauty, product, like in all areas. And so if I look at a space that's messy and needs to be cleaned, if I just reframe from I need to clean to how can I beautify this space, then I already feel my energy level go up a little bit and my motivation rise. And then if I even bring in this element of systemization, because one of my talents and my gifts is to systemize things and to be able to see like the eagle's perspective, the bird's eye view. So if I bring in like, and I want to create a really good system for this area of my home, all of a sudden I have like tons of energy to get it done. And this is like the practice that you could use in any area of your life. Whenever you're feeling like I need to do this, I should do this, like low vibe energy, there is a way through your strengths and through your talents and through the way that you're wired to approach it in a way that'll increase your motivation. And we can work that in any area of your life if you're aware of what those things are, which is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that example because it just shows a way for us to kind of rewrite the narrative, the script, and the behavior that goes with it. What I love about those kinds of stories is that now we're truly being ourselves than trying to be something that we think we should be.
Yeah.
So, and I was the mom who put everything away and had the energy for that. So I get why you'd be like, how can I not do this? My mom did it.
Yeah, because you were my example.
Yeah.
I actually never connected those dots. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, totally. And because I like to start a lot of things, I was always starting a lot of things in the house, because that was a great way for me to, do things. And it's pretty funny because you are excellent at building systems, but I'm excellent at starting the idea to build the system.
Yeah, that's true. That's why we work together so well.
But I don't always finish it, but I really like it. People would always view me as a super organized person. But it's interesting because in a lot of ways, you're more organized than me, but it's when you put those two things together, it really creates something powerful. And I think that's why we like to talk to women about this, because most of us are in relationships with other people. And it can be really helpful for us to understand not only ourselves, but how do we work better with people that are in our lives all of the time, and make things be more, maybe not just efficient, but just feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think of like, I was like, we should start a home organizing business.
Oh God, I did that.
Yeah, you actually were a home organizer for a while. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Again, one of my starting businesses, and I always used to think, why have I had so many careers? Like, what's wrong with me? I can't pick one thing. And now I look back and it's like, nothing's wrong with me. I just like to start a lot of things, but all of those things that I've started all connect now. So it's not like they led to nothing or led to not. They're just a part of the whole picture of how I show up in the world.
I think that's so brilliant because and I'm like thinking about this through my own experience of like, oh, I have been told that like you should change careers every 3 years if you want to like scale your income. And like my last career, I was in for almost a decade, like working for the same people. And I remember thinking there's something wrong with me. I am too loyal. This is stupid. This isn't logical. Like I should be, switching careers and switching companies, and I should be changing. I really felt like there was something wrong with me that I wasn't able to do that. And you're over here perceiving yourself as like, there's something wrong with me that I need to change my job all the
Yes.
time. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, that's actually like, those are our design types. Like you're
Yeah.
designed to be following your desires and following what lights you up, and that changes, and that's totally fine. And actually your life is more fulfilling and more enjoyable the more you do that.
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
on the other side saying like, the my design is that like I want to be the expert in something, which means I have to stick with something for a long period of time. So I actually am designed to more have that like conventional longevity in a career, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that piece. Yeah, for me, the last job I stayed in was almost 5 years, and it made a lot of sense that I was really unhappy by the time I was leaving because I had stayed too long, trying to fit into that mold of, oh, I'll just stay here. It's a stable job, it's good
You were
income.
so frustrated by the end of that.
I was so frustrated that I kind of had to like destroy the job at the end in a way. And this is something, this is also some things that some of us design like me will do because we aren't designed to stay there so long. So a lot of times we'll create a situation to get us out of a situation. And now that I know that about myself, I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah,
I
you're
can,
like, maybe I wouldn't have handled that the same way. I feel the same way,
yeah, be
but
like, no, I'm done. Peace out. Y'all have a great day. Bye. So,
I
but
won't be coming into work tomorrow.
yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing that I do sometimes is like by the time I get there, I'm done and it's not the nicest.
But
It's a
I mean,
little.
like, how different would that be if you knew that about yourself ahead
Mhm.
of time, that you were able to see, like, oh, here's the writing on the wall. Like, I'm done. My interest is somewhere else. I want to do
Yeah,
something else. And then you're
yeah,
able to gracefully leave that position. Like, I think my
yeah.
husband manages a restaurant. He all the
Uh-huh.
time just will have like somebody no show, or like they don't call in or anything. And I'm like, they're probably manifesting generators. They're probably just like, I'm done with this. I want to
Done.
do something else. And
Yeah.
like,
Right.
they probably could handle that transition a lot better if they knew that about themselves.
Yeah. Totally, totally. Because then they just say, oh, I'm right on track. So I'm just gonna transition to the next thing rather than thinking there's something wrong with me, but I'm pulled this way. So I'm gonna be, I'm not gonna be very great
Yeah.
as I transition. So with that said, I'd love to be able to pivot and talk about what we are offering
Yeah.
to folks watching this as a way to take a strength or even assess a strength or a way of being and turn it into more of a strategy and tool. So you want to chat about that, Julie?
Yeah. So it's one of my favorite things that we do with people is a strength strategy session. And
Mhm.
in these sessions, they're usually like, we need a little more than an hour. It's usually an hour and a half, 90 minutes that we'll sit down with somebody and, have them take the Gallup Strengths Finder assessment. So we have that as a starting point. And we'll usually, maybe plug in their human design type or pull from other strengths assessments that they've done. And really, my strength is to be able to see like bird's eye view on all of that and say, okay, here's how we use all of these things together and here's how they inform each other. And I think your strength is really to help people understand, like, in real time, this is what this looks like and this is how I use this. And maybe here's how I
Mhm.
can be strategic in my communication or communicating my needs, and really bringing that into our relationships either at work or at home.
Mhm.
But these are really powerful sessions for people. And if this is something that you'd be interested in doing, we'll drop a link either in the show notes or down in the comments, wherever you're watching this, where you can go on and book one of those. It's just a one-off session to really help shift kind of your awareness of what these strengths are, and really everything that we're talking about. And if
Mhm.
you're like somebody who's like, yes, and I want to run with that and I want to take it even further, we do have a 6-month coaching program, that this is just one of the pieces of the puzzle of really creating, kind of stepping into your personal design, your blueprint, and really creating this next level version of yourself. And if you go to our website, You can learn more about that, sandrawood.coach or juliejones.coach. It'll take you to the same place. But you can check that out. And I just really think this is such an amazing tool to start with changing your life.
Yeah. And, you can, if you're feeling like you really are excited about this, and you also have like an area of your life where like, this is where the problem lies, that is a great thing to bring to this session, because then we can look at your strengths. We can look at the challenge that you're facing, and you will walk away with a better understanding of yourself and how to handle that, which I think is a powerful thing to be able to experience in a short amount of time. And that's what we love to do with these sessions. So we'd love to see you. We will drop a link so you can go ahead and book that. And you get both of us. You get two coaches with two different designs and strengths who do a wonderful job of really understanding you and what's going on with you and how we can help you.
Yeah. And we call them strategy sessions for a reason. This isn't just like, we're not going to give you just like a strengths reading where we're just telling you about yourself.
Yeah.
This is like, we're focused on, yes, increasing self-awareness of what those strengths are, but really helping you create a strategy that works for you, not like a one size fits all, here's what you do to implement these strengths, but like she said, like people come with, here's my challenge, or here's where I'm having a challenge communicating with my partner, or, my teenagers, or my boss. And it's like, bring these challenges here. I'm trying to start a business. How do I do that from a place of strengths and not just like, buy a business in a box and try and do it the way Karen does it. Right. So it's like really using strategy to figure out how this works for you. Not just us telling you, here's who you are and here's how to go live your life, I guess.
Yeah. And also, this is not a sales call. This is just about you. This is only about that. So don't worry that we're here to trick you into a session. This is what we love doing, and we love helping people with. And if it's just one time, that's awesome. But we just love to get people going in a direction that's positive. And it's our mission to help people understand themselves better so that you can go out into your community and be a better version of yourself.
Yeah. Cause I think that's really, that's our mission is to help people see what's right with them. Cause we are so focused on what's wrong with us all the time. So
no more.
So go forth in what's right with you in your day. And I hope this was uplifting and inspiring to you, and also help you see yourself in a different way. And maybe start, a good place to start would just be to start becoming aware of what you think your strengths are, and to really start to see maybe where your triggers are, and what are the things that really do get you all flustered and frustrated, because those are probably areas of strengths actually, and you're seeing them as personality defects. And so just to start being aware of that is the best place, I think, to go, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, and hope to catch you next time.
Hey, bye.